Alright, so in this recording we're going to be doing the following. We're going to be installing an environment that it takes to run Quill, and we're going to be doing a bunch of things. We're going to be installing the Windows subsystem for Linux, various code editors, Java, Scala, SBT, all the things that we need to do. So let's get started, actually. So here's the Windows subsystem for Linux, and here are the instructions. Okay, looks like you need to open up PowerShell and enable this feature. Control C, double click there, pastes it. Let's see, elevated permissions. To only install WSL1, you should now restart your machine and move on to install. Okay, no. Well, we want to install WSL2 as well. Because WSL2 supports Docker, which we will not be installing now, but we want to install at some point, and I think WSL2 has some more features. The difference is that in a Windows subsystem for Linux 1 and 2, 2 is a little bit more capable. It has, the difference is that I think Windows subsystem for Linux 2 has more things it can do. Like Windows subsystem for Linux 1 can't really run Docker, or it has issues with that. It can't really mount things correctly. The difference is because of the kernel inside is different. Like the Windows subsystem for Linux 2 is actually running a virtual Linux kernel, but whatever. So, alright, we need to check our Windows version, if it's this version 2004 or whatnot. Let's see about that. So, right, run, Windows logo key R, run task, winver, which shows us our version. Yes, looks like we have the correct version, 2004, to be able to install this thing. And let's, for installing WSL2, you have to enable the virtual machine platform. So let's do that. Elevated permissions to run DISM. Use elevated command prompt. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Our first command actually didn't work. Right, you have to open up PowerShell through run as administrator. PowerShell. Right-click Run as Administrator. Yes, run PowerShell as Administrator. Yes, do that. There we go, that looks right. Now we want to install this thing here, and we enable virtual machine platform. And there we go. Set WSL2 as your default version. Fine. Okay, let's wait. WSL is not recognized as the name of a commandlet. Oh, yes. Restart your machine to complete WSL install and then update to WSL2. Okay, so now we have to reboot. Time for a reboot. See you back in a minute. So here I'm going to redo the sound because the original video was actually, or the original audio was destroyed. So I'm running WSL2 as the administrator, and checking what version it is, but of course, can't do that yet because you need to update the kernel. So I'm about to do that. I'm about to update the kernel. And let's have a look at that. So yeah, so there's a Linux kernel package update that I'm going to download. Here we go. There's a download link right above here that I'm about to click on. No, further up, further down. Yeah, basically this is just an update package that's required in order to be able to install Windows Subsystem for Linux too. So here it is. And so the idea is that in the original Windows Subsystem for Linux, there are a bunch of things that that the kernel couldn't do. You didn't have a fully fledged Linux kernel. This has changed in Windows Subsystem for Linux too. So there it is. All right, now. Oh right, need to. No, that's fine actually. And there we go. There's some of the differences between WSL1 and WSL2. Let's go back to what we were dealing with before. Okay, I'm just writing down. This is the link that you can go to, etc., etc. And basically, I'm explaining here that WSL versus WSL2, what some of those differences are. WSL2 is a virtualized Linux kernel as opposed to WSL1, which is the parts of the Linux kernel implemented directly in the Windows kernel. But anyhow, so next step is to install Ubuntu. So go to the Microsoft Store. There it is, and install it. And yeah, there it is. Actually, you can go through directly with a browser, which is what I'm about to do. But you can search for it in the store. You can click on it in the browser, and that'll just take you back to the store, to that particular link, which I click on, and there we go. Yada, 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 yada. Let's wait for indicator bars to complete. And I'm pausing here. And now I'm looking through the rest of the setup process. And there we go. There's the rest of the setup process. And that's my brother texting me. Yeah, so the next part of the process is to set up your WSL. You can set the default version. You can set the default WSL distribution. And here I'm about to do that. So the idea is that you can change the Linux distribution that you're running, and you can change the WSL that you're running that Linux distribution with. So here I'm just using the defaults here, so I'm using WSL2 with Ubuntu. Oh, yeah, and now I'm launching this Ubuntu, and this is going to install in the WSL. And asks you for a username. Asks you for password. And there we go. It's set up. And so now, once it's set up, we're going to start installing some stuff into it. Now, we can also list the WSL versions, again in PowerShell. So I'm running Ubuntu 20.04 inside of WSL2. And yeah, I can set a distribution to a particular WSL version, etc., etc. And basically, that's it. Well, fortunately, in my particular installation, I don't have to troubleshoot. And now I'm about to install Sublime Text for Windows. Now, yeah, so I'm going to install it for Windows. Here we go. This thing is done. I'm going to install it, go through the menu, etc., etc. It's done. Now, more importantly, I'm going to get VS Code. There are a couple of steps involved in VS Code. The first step, of course, is to download it. And so here I'm downloading it. Yeah, once I've downloaded it, then run it. Now, once that's done, a particular tool set needs to be installed in order for VS Code to be able to talk to the Windows subsystem for Linux in which my applications will be running. So, all right, I'm setting some additional options. And next. And install. Okay. And yes, I'm done installing Visual Studio Code. And yes, I need to install the Visual Studio Code remote extension. That's what allows you to use Visual Studio Code running in Windows basically that allows it to connect to the Windows subsystem for Linux. So here it is. Now, once you install it, it's a pretty simple install, and then what you can do is you could literally type code dot, and here I need to restart the subsystem, which I will in 1 second. And oh, by the way, yeah, those are the extensions. And okay, no additional configuration required. It's interesting that when it comes to polling files, actually, inside of the Windows subsystem for Linux, that's sort of a tricky thing. I've noticed at least one bug when it came to the file contents inside the subsystem, where sort of what was on the inside and what was on the outside, at least, didn't seem to entirely match or make any sense. So I guess WSL still has a few odd bugs left in it. But anyway, so here I'm just going through and reading some of this stuff. Oh, here we go. WSL tips and tricks. One of the important things is line endings and making sure that your line endings are right, because Linux and Windows use different line endings. So if you're using this thing, then you want to make sure that you have the right ones. And so, but anyway, I'm about to close this thing up and then start it from the subsystem. By the way, you need to restart your Ubuntu, right, once you've installed this thing. So let's do that in a second. Yep, there it is. Now code dot. So now it'll open up, oh, there we go. It automatically installs an extension that's needed to connect to Visual Studio Code, and there it is. So now I'm running, I opened up the current directory inside of Visual Studio Code, and those are my, bash RC files in my home directory. So that was pretty simple. And also this tips and tricks thing for making sure that your line endings are correct. They have to be the Linux line endings. Typically, that's sort of what we use for development. We make sure that we have Linux line endings being used, as opposed to Windows line endings that Git will just not work. It's one of these things that you absolutely need to have Linux line endings. Very annoying because, if there are mixed line endings in your file, then Git will think that stuff has changed that has actually not changed. And so what you can do here is you could go to .git attributes, and what you can set in there is I'm going to get to this in 1 second, is set some options that will enforce line endings to always be the Linux line endings. So there they are, text equals to auto EOL LF. And so the idea is that basically always make sure that you have Linux line endings unless you are specifically editing a Windows file. So LF means it's like the Linux carriage return. CR is the Windows carriage return, and so basically it's, in the Windows you have two different characters for a line ending, where in Linux you have one. So there we go. Basically set up this git attributes file where you put the contents of it to be what that is, and I'm gonna add this to the source so you don't have to. Meanwhile, I'm just reading through this. Okay, there's some requirements for the Git version to be able to do all of this correctly. Also, the other thing is that you can do git config global core.auto crlf. What that will do is that that will always use, I believe, the Linux style endings and set as a global configuration. I believe that's what it does. But anyway, I think the git attributes approach is better. Okay. Well, there's that. There's that link if you want to take a look at that webpage. Now, what are we going to do next? Yes, let's have a look at SDK Manager. And okay, so the reason that we're going to be using SDK Manager here is because we need to install a bunch of stuff. We need to install Scala, we need to install Java, we need to install SBT. All these things are sort of files that are going to be managed, well, they need to be managed by something. And typically you need to go to different places to install them. You need to go to SBT's website to install SBT. You need to go to Oracle's website, or adopt Jdk or whatnot to install Java. What Sdkman or the SDK Manager lets you do is it lets you go and download all these things from one place. And it's very handy, very convenient. And we're going to be installing these things into the Windows subsystem for Linux. If you want to use things like IntelliJ in Windows and compile things from Windows, you need to install them in Windows separately. We will cover that in a different video. But this is going to be talking about installing SDK Manager in the Windows subsystem for Linux. And so we're going to be installing, again, Scala, Java, and SBT. And so the SDK Manager is this really nice utility that just very easily lets you install different packages and different frameworks, and it's just very, very convenient. In just very, very few steps you can do that. So we're about to do that right now. Okay, so let's go to SDK Manager. Here's SDK Manager, and let's install it and then use it to install Java and Scala and all the other good stuff that we need. Oh, looks like all we have to do is execute this command inside of our Ubuntu subsystem. Let's do that. Okay, we need to install unzip. Okay. Alright, so the Ubuntu subsystem doesn't come shipped with unzip. apt-get install unzip. Right, so that should do the trick. Wait, no. Sudo apt-get install unzip. Enter your password. And yes, you need to install... First, need to install unzip. And by the way, just because we have Sublime Text, let's open this up in Sublime Text because it has much better capabilities around undo and that sort of thing. So, Control-O, setup. Oh, and one other thing before we continue. Notice how this doesn't show me the file extension. Something in Windows that I abhor is the fact that by default it does not show me file extensions. So let's look at the taskbar settings. Let's see if we can get it to show us the file extensions. Let's see, peek preview, automatically hide tablet, always hide labels, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I wonder if... Oh, wait. Show file extensions. Very nice. Windows has actually made there for developers. Change settings to show show settings. Oh, the legacy, the legacy task menu, right? And you have to hide protected operating systems, hide folder merge conflicts, hide extensions for known file types. Oh, hold on a minute. But if we do change settings to show file extensions. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is developer settings. Install apps from any source, including loose files. Okay. Change the settings to show file extensions. Change settings to show hidden and system files. Change settings to show full path in the title bar. Change policy to show run as different user in start. Change settings to show empty drives. And what this nice little menu that Windows 10 gives us is the ability to apply all of these settings, right? Like normally we'd have to go here to File Explorer Options, right? And you could do that. You could go to File Explorer Options, right? There we go. And then you'd go to View, and then you can do that, right? So if you want to be able to see file extensions, you just do that. You just click on this thing here to not hide extensions for known file types. But anyway, but this thing nicely lets you apply, these developer settings automatically. All of these developer settings automatically. So let's see, apply. Okay, looks like it applied them. And then let's see, File Explorer Options, and yes, indeed, you can see that it is no longer hiding file extensions for known file types. Oh, and then there are some other options here that you could have a look at. But anyway, interesting. So you could look at settings for developers, and then you could, let's see, developer settings. Look at that. So you can look at, oh, by the way, we opened up this file here in Sublime Text. Very nice. If you're in Windows and you have a multi-touchpad, it will actually work correctly. Oh, yes. So, yes. Enable, show, or let's say Windows developer settings for sanity, show extensions for known file types. View. Get rid of that. Anyway, so next, first need to install sudo apt-get. Okay, yes, we installed unzip. Let's see what things come in this thing. Let's see, do I have curl? Ooh, we probably want to do install WSL Apps. Let's do curl. Curl sudo apt-get install curl. What? Sudo apt-get install. Oh, whoops. Sudo. Oh, curl is already installed. Oh, what am I saying? I thought that, okay, no. Yes, curl is already there. Great, so now we have SDK Manager, and let's install Jdks. So let's do let's do OpenJDK. Let's install adopt OpenJDK. So that's the command that you use to install adopt OpenJDK. Well, that's not exactly the command. You need to do, no, that's not what we want. Oh, hold on a minute. How do you list the JDKs that you have? Let's see. What's the command reference for this thing? Oh, usage. Here we go. SDK install Java. Okay. Install latest stable. That's, no, what we want is Java 8. So, there we go. So SDK list. I think we need to, once we installed SDK Manager, we need to restart the Ubuntu subsystem, so let's do that. Let's do that. Are we recording? Yes, we are recording. Okay, that worried me for a second. Anyway, let's see, SDK list. What? I thought we just installed this thing. Install. Oh, right, because we installed zip and we needed to do that. Wait, no, hold on. Oh, we also need to install, okay. Let's actually move this line up. Sudo apt-get install unzip. This is unzip. Also, we need zip. Sudo apt-get install zip. Right. I just sneezed. No, you cannot get corona over a webcam. All right. Okay. How about now? Can we get SDK Manager? Let's try it again. Voila. SDK help. SDK help. Oh, yeah, we need to install. We need to restart the Ubuntu subsystem for SDK Manager to work. Yes, we do. Let's see, SDK list. Okay. SDK list Java. So here are all the Java versions that SDK Manager can easily install for you. And what we want is we want Java 8 in adopt open JDK. What is the difference between HS and J9? Okay. What's the difference there? Adopt open JDK. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, hotspot. HS means hotspot. What is OpenJ9? Java hotspot vs J9. What is that? OpenJ9 vs hotspot. Different JVM implementation for Oracle hotspot JVM. Okay, OpenJ9. Blah, blah, blah. OpenJ9 is good with memory management, blah, blah, blah. Okay, these are different JVMs that you could play around with. I'm going to install hotspot. All of these interesting options that 99% of people don't really give a crap about. Charming. So let's install this. SDK install Java. Oh, and then we need to use not this label, but that label here. And that's how we install Java. And let's copy this thing. SDK Manager, Java. Here's how we install that. Next up, let's see. Next up, Scala. SDK list. Scala. So there are a couple of Scala versions that we are gonna use. Actually probably 2.12.12 is the safest bet, so install that. SDK install Scala, and there, that should do the trick. So there, install Scala. Now, SBT list, SDK list SBT. Okay, let's install the latest one, 1.3.13. SDK install SBT. Latest one, that should work. Yada, yada, yada. Ah, all right. Now we have Quill 3. We need to install Quill 3 and get it to work. And then install Dotty Quill and get that to work. So let's try to get Quill 3 working in, let's get Quill 3, which is Quill using Scala 2. And the reason we need to do that is just so that you can debug it, and if you're migrating parts of the parser, you need to sort of be able to debug it and reference it. So let's try to use that. Let's try to use Visual Studio Code for building and debugging Quill. So let's launch VS Code, and to develop Scala in Visual Studio Code, we need to use something called metals. Visual Studio Code metals. And so this is basically a plugin for Visual Studio Code to develop in Scala. So, Eclipse OpenJ9 is not supported. That's good. Okay, install metals from the marketplace of Visual Studio. Yeah. So yeah, we can click on install, continue, open Visual Studio Code, and Scala metals install. Yay! Scala metals is installed. Okay, well, there it is. Let's see. So, let's see if we could get started with this. Custom SBT launcher. By default, Maven runs in an embedded SBT launcher that respects SBT opts and VM opts. So these are places where you can add options, or the environment variables. SBT ops and Java ops are not respected. Okay, so in other words, if you want to launch the Scala build tool with custom options inside of metals, then, and if you want to compile metals, or if you want to compile the Scala code in metals in some custom way, you need to add this file here. So that might have some interesting consequences, but let's try to get this thing running. So let's check out Quill. TDD, TDD, now, yeah, let's check out Quill. And, you know, I like to do all of my Git operations directly on the command line because a lot of integrated development environments do voodoo with the Git. So I like to see Git on the command line. So I like to, I like to make a directory for some of these projects, you know, do it as you like, git clone. And you might want to, let's see, if you want to clone this repository, you might want to clone the thing from HTTPS. If you're cloning it directly from this repository. In a different segment, I can, you know, show how if you're forking Quill, if you want to do pull requests directly to Quill, how you do that. We'll get that. We'll take a look at that a little later. But anyway, so here's our environment. In fact, I want to actually not build from master. I want to build from an earlier commit in which I'll actually make a branch here that you can refer to. In fact, give me 1 minute and I will do that. Let's see. I'll be back in just a second. You know what, actually, let's build latest Quill. I've changed my mind. 1 second. Okay, let's try to run it from here. So let's go to Quill. And I guess open Visual Studio Code in the current directory. Let's try that and let's see if it can automatically install. Let's see what happens. Okay. Extensions. And we're using remote WSL. Oh, install in WSL Ubuntu 20.4 enable. Install the extension in WSL Ubuntu 20.04 to enable. Okay, so we have to install this extension. We have to install Scala Metals. We haven't installed it yet. Or we need to install it, but we need to install it in Ubuntu. Okay. All right, let's reload required. Let's click on that and to reload. Here we go. Oh, looks like it's downloading Metals. So Metals is Metals is the plugin for Metals is the plugin for Visual Studio Code that compiles Scala. So let's click on Import Build here. Let's make a few notes. Checkout from Git. Open checkout from Git in Ubuntu, in WSL, in Ubuntu. Do git clone, and we'll grab that in a second. Then open in VS Code by doing code dot, and then in VS Code in the extensions section, it will offer to install Scala Metals. Install that. Click on the reload button. Then it will offer to import the project, the Quill project, as a Metals project. Click on import, and I think there's a way to manually do it if you forget to click on that. Oh, there we go. Yeah, import build. That's what you want to import build. That's what you want to do there. And then, let's see, automatic installation, manual installation. Instead of using automatic import, you can manually import SB bloop and generate OK, blah, blah, blah. We don't really care about that. I think it should, one second. I think this menu, if this menu appears and you ignore it, I don't know of a way to, you could try closing Visual Studio Code and relaunching it again. Maybe if you go to here and you go back to this extension section, if you go to Scala Metals, and then you click it, it'll give you the option to enable it. But anyway, let's look at what's going on now. What's going on now is that, okay, show logs. What's going on now is that the Metals Scala extension is now compiling the source code of Quill, and it's compiling the source code of Quill using an engine called Bloop, which stands for build loop, and that's basically how it does it. And the build loop allows it to, when you change one file, not have to recompile the entire code base, but maybe recompile only that file and the other files that may have been affected by that file. But anyway, so here's the compilation for Quill inside of Metals. And meanwhile, let me just take a look at some preferences with Metals. I'd like to go on and show you how to open up the Dotty stuff for the new Quill stuff, and that has to be opened up in VS Code. Although that can be opened up in IntelliJ, and I'll show how to do that later. VS Code is sort of their officially supported environment, so let's do that. First of all, let's close this project for a second. Let's relaunch VS Code. What you need to install is, you need to install, in this case, the Dotty language server. So you need to install this, this component. Once this thing is done, you need to check out, the Dotty Quill project, the project that you're going to be working on, and check it out into, you need to check it out into the Ubuntu subsystem. So let's do that. So right now, I'm actually going to change the place where you get this from, but right now you can find this under /Dotty test. And we're going to be moving it very soon, but for now, check out this repository. In fact, what you should do is you should create a new Git account, and you should fork your repository from this. Now, so let's actually do that. Let's actually walk you through. I don't know. We can walk you through forking a repository in Git. Actually, let's do that. I guess we can sign up with a new account. Let's try that. Username not available. Let's try something else. Okay. 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 Verify. Touch the arrows to roll the image. Okay. Image is correct way up. Type done. Okay. Alright. Create account. Alright. Whatever it is. Blah, 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 blah. Complete setup. Now, okay, let's, we create a new GitHub account, and, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fork this repository. Let's see, Dotty test. So let's fork it. Oh, right, we need to verify. 1 second, let me do that. Okay, we did that. We verified our GitHub account, etc. Fork the repository. Good, we've forked the repository. Now, let's set up SSH keys. Let's set up some SSH keys that we can use here. Let's let's set up some SSH keys that we can use to push to this thing. So SSH keygen is how you generate the keys. Okay. CID, RSA, GitHub. I like to have different keys for different things. In this case, I'm going to do ID, RSA, GitHub, Natrixia, and, well, actually, no, that's more complicated than that. Yeah, I suppose we could do that. Let's do it like that. And then, okay, I'm not going to do a passphrase, although technically you should. And we are, shoot, I forgot to make a SSH directory. Definitely do that. And let's move my keys into here. ID, let's move them both into there. And then what we want to do is we want to first of all, we want to add this public key into our, basically into our Git repo that we've created here so that we can push to it. So let's do that. And let's see, you go to settings and SSH and GPG keys. Add an SSH key, laptop key, and SSH key. Now, you typically want to make sure that also, when you actually try to push an SSH key to GitHub, it attempts to use this. There are a couple of ways to do it. You can do SSH add, I believe, and you could do ID, RSA, GitHub, Natrixia, and that should, oh wait, oh, that requires an authentication agent. Okay, that's more complicated. The simplest way to do it, I believe, is to do a config inside of here, and then let's see, SSH conf format, and let's see, SSH config format. What is the, let's see, what's the actual way that you, okay, oh, there we go, okay. Host github.com. Then you typically want to do, host name github.com, and you want to do user and your Linux username. You want to do, in this case, you don't care about port because you're going to be using the GitHub protocol, which is always port 22. What is important to have is this identity file that you're going to do, and that's going to be in your .ssh / in this case I did this thing here. Let's give that a shot. Now let's check out this forked repository that we did. Let's check this thing out. And this is actually where you can use not HTTPS, but you could use SSH. Well, you could do either one, actually, but using the SSH protocol will allow you to basically push without having to enter a password all the time. Now, Oh, interesting. You can add a new public key. Wait a minute, we added a public key. We have a key. I don't know why this is telling us we don't have a key. That's odd, but okay. You don't have any public SSH keys in your GitHub account. Add a new public SSH key. Wait a minute. We have SSH keys. SSH and GPG keys. We have SSH keys. That's weird. New SSH key. Huh. Wonder why it says that. Okay, maybe it's an error, maybe. Okay. Alright, well, let's try to check this thing out. Let's try to check this thing out. I like to do it in a common directory, so do git clone that. Yes, and then it's going to ask, do you trust your SSH key that you have here? And yes, let's clone it. Now, let's go to Dotty test, and let's make a couple of changes before we launch it. Again, I will commit these changes, so you won't have to do it. But anyhow, let's look. So first of all, we should be able to open this directory with Sublime text. And, oh, there we go. We can open it directly in here. And instead of this, I want to open it up to Git 3.5, Quill 3.5.3. Remove that. 3.5.3, I believe. Let me quickly check this. Yes, oh, sorry, no, 3.5.2. 3.5.2. Now, let's try, first of all, to compile it and see what happens. Let's try to compile this thing and see what happens. Let's go to Dotty test. Let's actually look, what branches do I have? Let's do git pull. Let's see, git pull -- all. How do you pull all branches? Surprising, because I thought I had it further than that. 0.22 RC1, that's fine. There are a couple of versions ahead, but let's see. SBT compile. Let's see what happens. Let's increase the font on this thing. How can we do that easily? Oh, yes, we can. You can use two-finger pan to increase the font on this thing, but not Command-Shift+. Okay. Alright, so we're downloading a bunch of dependencies here. Okay. Looks like we've managed to compile it. So let's do SBT launch IDE. And what this thing will do is it should launch VS Code from here. Oh, wait. Now we're getting errors.